Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So, it's technically been about a week since I did one of these, although on Monday it felt like I had to do about 11 10-minute testings in a row for that abomination of a video. If you'll recall, all the way back on last Wednesday, we had a deck tech about Red Eyes Black Dragon, which is an archetype where Konami likes to sort of throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Fluffals, inversely, is an archetype where Konami knows exactly what it needs and repeatedly prints it. They support it so often and with such good tools that there's no way this deck isn't going to be good at some point in the future. With the release of this new card, Frightfur Patchwork, and some other support, I think the future is now. Let's jump into deck edit and I'll show you what I'm playing. So here's the list. Now, the first thing you'll recognize is that a lot of these cards seem to have that weird equip spell cross symbol in their upper left-hand corner. That's YGO Pro's way of letting you know that the card hasn't been released in paper yet. Now, I know that some of these are already slated for a future release in an upcoming pack, but given Konami's repeated blunders about releasing Frightfur and Fluffal monsters, I can't guarantee you'll see something like Frightfur Patchwork in any sort of reasonable time frame, especially given it was spoiled like 3 or 4 days ago. So for those of you who don't know, Fluffals is this archetype of like cute little doll-looking ass monsters that are either really innately powerful or have these really good effects when you fuse with them. Now, the other half of the archetype is these edgy, if you understand my hilarious joke, monsters called Edge Imps that are all like cutting tools with eyeballs. You got Edge Imp Sabers, which is censored in the US. We got Edge Imp Chain, and then we got a bunch of Edge Imps that don't matter. This one doesn't even look angry. He just looks surprised. Huh. Anyway, when you fuse with these Edge Imps and these Fluffals, they create these really powerful fusions called Frightfurs. And Frightfurs usually win you the game on the spot. Previously, the way Fluffals was played is you would try and go into Frightfur Wolf, using its effect to let it attack like 4 or 5 times in one turn, and then go into a Frightfur Tiger, which would destroy a whole bunch of cards on your opponent's side of the field, and basically clear the way for a Wolf that could blow your opponent up in one hit. Now, there were always 2 things sort of keeping down this really potent and good at OTKing deck. The first is its consistency. Hands where you don't really have access to polymerization really suck. Now, you can always like draw your way out of them with Toy Vendor, which is one of the most powerful advantage engines in Yu-Gi-Oh! But in a world where you can't like make adequate use of Toy Vendor, all you're really doing is drawing cards you're going to immediately discard. Like, you really need to be able to have wings as well, and even if you use its effect that like adds a Fluffal to your hand from your deck after it's destroyed or sent to the graveyard, then, you know, you are still constrained by the actual range of effects that Fluffals have. None of them add poly to your hand. However, the release of this new card, Frightfur Patchwork, is insane. It says add a polymerization and an Edge Imp monster from your deck to your hand. That's awesome. It's also called Frightfur, so Edge Imp Chain can add it to your hand and extend your combo plays. So that's part 1. Part 2 is that the deck sucked ass at going first. It just was really bad at it. And I'm sure all of you know that going first is something you kind of have to do a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! These days. This is one of the most powerful decks that I think puts up a good argument for not going first, but still, you are going to lose coin flips, and at least 1 game per series, you'll probably have to go first. So you need to be able to do something, and doing nothing in this meta means your opponent will probably either kill you into the sun, or make this unbreakable board that even Tiger can't get through. So the release of this new card, Frightfur Kraken, sort of helps to shore up some of those difficulties. Now, it can destroy 1 card on the field once per turn, but then it can't attack, and it has 3,000 defense, so it's not bad to sit on. But more importantly, it doesn't need an Edge Imp Saber to fuse, so you can use Chain, which means you can extend a combo play utilizing Frightfur Kraken, and more importantly, it's 8 stars. So if you can go into 2 Krakens turn 1, you can then go into a Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy, which, as I'm sure you know, is actually a pretty good turn 1 play. So the dream is, on the play, we're going to get out like a Toy Vendor and a couple of Krakens that go into Titanic Galaxy, and we're off to the races. And on the draw, we'll just kill them with Wolf and Tiger as usual. Now, the release of the new cards that really help the deck are Fluffal Penguin. This card allows you to basically summon twice, which is really, really sweet in this deck, because some of the fusion cards constrain you to, like, cards on your side of the field. Fluffal Octo, which puts cards in your banish zone back in your graveyard. This is especially effective because you'll be banishing cards with Toy Vendor and Wings. Frightfur Patchwork, I already told you how great this card is. And Foolish Burial of Belongings. This card is actually incredibly potent because Toy Vendor doesn't say it has to be destroyed on the field, it can be sent to the graveyard from anywhere. So if you Foolish Burial of Belongings a toy vendor, then you get a Fluffal to your hand. So hopefully that will be enough. Let's jump into the games and see if it is. So one thing I'd recommend for anyone who is like new to Fluffals is looking up combo videos on YouTube. They're really helpful and really necessary because this is a very combo-centric deck. We've opened okay, and we're on the draw, which is alright. Having 2 copies of Edge Imp Chain kind of sucks, and I believe there's a third one on top of my deck. Hilarious. My opponent is on some sort of, you know, bullshit deck. You can see that he has like a Solar Recharge and a bunch of Light Sworns and a Unizombie, so I'm thinking there will be Omegas in my future. He's going to go first, go ahead and Solar Recharge, and then play Unizombie, sending Mizuki and Perform Age Trick Clown, and oh my god, well, here's number 1, there's Omega. We're going to banish this Mizuki to get Unizombie back, then use Unizombie to send another Mizuki and end his turn. So I'm feeling okay. However, if he banishes like the toy vendor, I'm fine. If he banishes, like, the wings, I'm a little less fine. There's some bad scenarios off this Omega. I draw a third Edge Imp Chain, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm going to go ahead and bear right now just to make sure that gets in the graveyard. That's step 1. I need him to hit one of these 3 Edge Imp Chains, I believe, and he does, thankfully. We're going to set this toy vendor. So the first thing you need to recognize is you got to be thinking like 55 moves ahead with this deck. He's going to Twin Twister my toy vendor, a move I would not recommend. Then I'll get a dog. The dog is going to add a cat to my hand so I can recycle Polymerization. So I'm going to play this toy vendor, and I'm going to discard this Edge Imp Chain instead of the Fluffal Wings. We could draw more cards by sending the Wings, but Edge Imp Chain lets us get the Edge Imp Chain effect, or if it's sent to the graveyard, we can get a Frightfur card from our deck to our hand. The card we're going to get is, of course, Frightfur Patchwork, and we're going to use that to get a Polymerization and a Sabers. From this point, we can poly with the cat in order to make a wolf that can hit for like 3 or 4 times. Then we're going to use the cat's effect to get the poly back to our hand, and afterwards, we can use Wings effect in order to draw a shitload of cards, and then we can use Sabers effect to special summon itself, then poly into a tiger. The tiger is going to blow up the Unizombie, and that is game. So that's how the combo looks when executed in a way that like works. Here we don't have a toy vendor, which is rough, but we do have a dog, which represents a toy vendor, a wings, really anything we want it to, and our ability to send like a chain off of the toy vendor or a wings to draw cards is sweet. So we're going to go ahead and get Bear, use Bear's effect to set toy vendor. Our opponent is playing some like Dino Mist frog deck. Boy, I can only imagine the fair things they intend to do. We're going to flip this toy vendor, send this wings to draw a card, and when you know it, it's a Fluffal. Doesn't particularly matter. Then we're going to use Wings effect in order to draw a bunch of cards. He Floodgate Trap Holes my Bear, and I'm like, no, no, no. You want to save that. You're going to really hate having done that in about 3 seconds. We're going to draw about 18 cards. We have a Poly, we have a Twin Twister, we have a Cat, we have a Sabers. I mean, we have everything we possibly need. So we're going to Poly in order to make a wolf that can attack like 9 times. Then we're going to use Rabbit's effect in order to get a Fluffal or Edge Imp back to my hand, and Cat's effect to get a Poly back to my hand. So that gets us the Bear. We're going to use Sabers effect in order to put a card on top of our deck. Then we're going to Poly again into a Tiger, blowing up 2 cards, and boom goes the Dynamite. We have won another game. So that's what happens when the deck goes off as intended. Now, a lot of the time, you will get disrupted. I mean, decks nowadays play disruption. So here's what it looks like when that happens. Our opponent is playing Artifact Cosmo, a deck that I think is hilarious, but probably not very good. They're going to set 3 and pass. You know, there's so much Tree Toad in the meta that I'm like, that's probably 3 battle traps. I'm just going to go for it and Tiger and blow up as many as I can. We're going to send a toy vendor off of this Foolish Burial of Belongings. Then we're going to use Bear's effect to set a toy vendor. Then we're going to use the toy vendor to send Wings. That allows us to draw a card and then draw 2 more cards. And then Toy Vendor allows us to draw a 3rd card, which is a Fluffal. And we have, wow, we have so much in our hand. I'm going to go ahead and Twin Twister now because this is Giga Lethal in our hand. However, he Sanctums for a Morale Tech, and I hit a Scythe. And I go, oh god, we can't do anything this turn. We can't go into the extra. We can't, like, make a cool play at all. I don't know. Like, probably the best thing that we can possibly do is just thin our deck as much as possible and play dog and pass. So I'm going to do that. Gonna get this cat to make sure that I can recycle this polymerization over and over again and be able to kill him next turn. He's gonna go ahead and make Cosmo Slip Rider destroy my back row, which is, of course, just a Twin Twister that I am not going to activate against an artifact deck. He's gonna play Card of Demise and then discard 2 cards. You know, sometimes it's just Upstart Goblin. So I'll start with a Poly. I'm gonna make a Kraken, and then a cat is gonna get me that Poly back, and Shane is gonna get me a Frightfur card. I decide to get Frightfur Fusion because I figure I'm gonna run out of resources if I make 4 Frightfurs this turn. Using them from the graveyard is probably fine. When I destroy this Slip Rider, I realize he's not, you know, making another one. So I feel pretty good about that. We're going to go ahead and polymerization into a wolf that can attack a couple of times. Then we get Penguin's effect, which allows us to draw 2 and discard 1. We draw a Toy Vendor, and I'm like, yeah, I'll discard that. That represents another penguin in my hand. Then I'm going to polymerize this penguin and this sabers in order to, or this chain, excuse me, to make another Kraken, which can destroy this card. Then I'm going to fusion in order to go ahead and get this sheep. So I'm ready to beat in for lethal, and my opponent decides that they are ready to concede. So we're back with the deck. I know a lot of people who play Frightfurs and Fluffals and things like that. I've always liked the deck, but this is the first time I felt it was meta competitive. I think in a hypothetical future where a lot of the top decks get banned out in the coming months and Frightfur Patchwork is released around the same time, this could really be a power player. It looked really good in the games we were playing, and I did play a little against some meta, but they were really so one-sided or not convoluted enough that it wasn't worth showing. I will say that the deck has 2 giant glaring weaknesses that I think are big problems. The first is to Vanity's Emptiness. There's no really good way to get rid of it in this deck because none of your creatures are good at attacking over anything. I mean, aside from Twin Twister, I don't really know what the deck intends to do about that. And it has a giant glaring weakness to Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Now, I think either the ban list or ABC pushing Blue Eyes all the way out of the meta will help with that, but not solve the problem entirely. So, despite weaknesses to a couple of meta strategies and really, you know, common cards, I think the deck is still really, really powerful. Like, we were very good at killing our opponent through hate. We were very good at making Hope Harbinger, Titanic Galaxy turn 1 a lot of the time, and I just think this deck might be actually very, very good. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed watching something that wasn't just a meme fest. I hope you enjoyed watching me defend making 1 card by spending your entire hand as a viable turn 1 strategy, and most of all, I hope you just enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out, and if you want to see me play the decks that I make on this show on stream, I'm on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday from 9:30 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time, links in the description. Finally, if there is a deck or archetype you want to see me play or explore on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comments section below and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I will see you Friday.